I'm Nurse Jessica Seitz, along with Nurse Erica. We're Nurses Uncorked, the podcast that takes nursing facts with nursing comedy and makes a little cocktail out of it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Nurses Uncorked podcast. It is myself, Nurse Jessica Seitz, and Nurse Erica, my co-host, here again for another fun-filled week. And again, we have a guest with us. I love when we have guests because I get so sick of hearing Erica talking, like that she just yaps and yaps, and it sometimes hurts my skull. So when we can break the monotony of that, it's just amazing. Oh, did I say that out loud? Anyways,
yeah.
I had to, Erica. So this week, for the month of Halloween, we thought it would be really cool to do an episode based on nursing stories, like spooky nursing stories. So I thought, what better way to kind of get into that than to invite the spookiest person I know. I'm just kidding. She's not spooky, but she does deal with some stuff that might be spooky to some people. We have Hospice Nurse Penny here with us today on the podcast. Welcome, Nurse Penny.
Penny.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For people that don't know who Hospice Nurse Penny is, which I can't imagine that they don't, but tell us a little bit about yourself, Penny. And you can start however you want. Start with what kind of nurse you are, your background, your social media. Just give us a whirlwind of who Nurse Penny is.
So I am a nationally certified hospice and palliative care nurse. I've been a hospice nurse for about 18 years. I've only been a nurse for about 20 years. I was a late bloomer, so I didn't go to nursing school until I was 40. So really, hospice has been the majority of my career in nursing. I started in inpatient hospice care. I did that for many years, and then I became a home hospice case manager, and then I moved into an education and quality role, and I'm currently a quality manager for a very large hospice agency in Washington, where I live. I am a passionate advocate for hospice care and end-of-life care, and I have always found that when I've been with the families of my patients, if I was able to normalize those normal death and dying symptoms that we see people go through, they were really relieved of the fear and anxiety they had about those things. And so when I got onto social media during the pandemic in 2020, it wasn't originally my goal to talk about hospice. I was trying to learn how to shuffle dance, but I never did. And so I decided I would tell a hospice story. I had looked up hospice on TikTok, and I really didn't find that there was any hospice educators at that time. There was nobody talking about, like really what to expect during the dying process. And so I started creating videos, and I do different styles of videos. I do TikTok trends and dancing and lip syncing and pointing at words. So I can do 8-second video about death and dying, or I can do, like a 10-minute video about death and dying. I do all kinds of different styles of teaching. I'm on all of the social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook.
How do they find you? What is your handle the same everywhere, or is it different?
Hospice Nurse Penny on all the social media platforms. Hospice Nurse Penny.
Before we get into like our spooky stories, how do you think the majority of people receive this topic? Like for the first person that comes across your content, do you feel like they either love it or they hate it, or are most people receptive to the topic? What would you say?
I think the majority, I have a lot of followers, so I think the majority of people who come across it like it. And there are some people who hate it, and there's nothing you can ever do to change their minds. They think that hospice killed their person, and they're never going to change their mind about it. And then there's some who admittedly have said to me, when I first saw you, I didn't really like what you were doing, but as I kept seeing you come across my feed, I have really learned a lot, and I appreciate what you're doing. And it's also about what kind of style of learner you are and how you respond to the type of video that you're seeing me doing. If you're an older person, you might not think it's cool for me to dance around to the TikTok trending song of the day and lip sync and just have a few words. And then if you're younger, then you might really like that. And I've had people who have really responded well to those short little clips, and get it. And some people don't get it, and they'll ask, what do you mean by that? Because they're kind of, it's hard to give the full details on something in an 8-second video, but so some people
Absolutely.
get it, some people don't, but people overall respond really well, I think.
Yeah, we have hospice in common. I have a focus in pediatric hospice, but I don't do a lot of content on it. I focus more on the advocacy side, but I originally started following you because of your hospice content, because I love it, of course. And I'm also a big advocate proponent of hospice. And so thank you for everything that you do with educating the community at large, because I know it's not easy. And like you said, there's a lot of people that are very resistant to it, and frankly, mean and accusatory, and just have outlandish accusations for hospice nurses in general. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. In general, but then even targeting me and the other hospice nurses on social media, specifically within their hate groups. And there is a hate group on Facebook that Murdered by Hospice.
Oh
Are you
boy.
serious?
Are you
Oh,
I
are you
haven't
like
seen
the
that.
are you the cover photo, Penny? Do they have you as the banner?
Well, right now they have one of Hospice Nurse Julie's recent videos on there, and they're
Oh,
slamming her for one
no.
she did. But yeah, they've gone after both of us, and they come into my Facebook comment section, and they say terrible things.
Yeah.
You're a
Penny,
killer,
you
you're a
haven't made it on
murderer.
Facebook till you have a hate group. I have one too, so don't worry. Mine's called Oof, I'm Nurse Jessica Seitz.
No
Is it
way,
really?
really?
Yeah, and the cover photo is a picture of me getting Botox.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a hate group
Which
yet, but
and you shouldn't be doing that if you're a nurse, because I was told that as a hospice nurse who is a proponent for natural death, how dare I get a facelift? What the is wrong with you? Like,
as
why
if
would
one
you do
has
such a
anything to
thing?
do with the other.
I'm always told, how
Yeah.
dare I wear makeup, that patients don't want to see that. They don't want to be in the hospital and see they're not at their best. They don't want to see you at your best. I'm like, says who? Says who?
I have had that too. I had that too. I probably the same person commenting the same type of thing. They're dying. They don't want to see you looking good. Like,
I'm like, well, I don't know where you
what?
work. I work labor and delivery, and we're not supposed to look. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, honey, but I've never had anybody get upset that I had makeup on when I delivered their baby. I don't know what to tell you.
Haters gonna hate. They got nothing better to do than sit in their mom's basement and hammer out things on the keyboard because they're anonymous and they can get away with it.
Penny, do you feel like a lot of the people that their initial reaction is possibly mean is because it's an uncomfortable topic, and maybe they feel nervous watching it because it's stuff that, I mean, that's got to be a lot of it. It's just uncertainty and awkwardness to the person. So what better way than to be an ass and respond with a mean comment? I think it's definitely a topic that's not talked about like it should be. We actually talked with John Edward about that. Like, it's just so taboo to talk about dying.
No, I mean, it shouldn't be, because we're all going to die someday, but we have really taken death and death care out of the home, and we threw it in the hospital, and we told doctors that they need to do everything they can to save people, because if they don't, and the person dies, that's a failure. So they don't want to stop treatment until the last possible minute, and they don't feel comfortable talking to people about the fact that their person is dying. And then we're trying to move it back into the home where it belonged before, and that's hard, because then families are having to take care of their dying person, and it's a hard job to do. And but it's just taboo, because people there's especially an older generation of people who got to the point where they felt like, with the medical advances that they saw, like, think about now I'm a lot older than you guys, but I mean, when I was a kid, we had a party line on the telephone, and cell phones didn't come around until I was 40. I mean, so when you see all this thing, and it's like this amazing, marvelous movement towards the future, right? And so you think, wow, it's just all the way from here. You're just going to keep getting more and more and more. So these people back in the day, the older generation, like 70, 80 years old, who saw like vaccines and how they started working better. I mean, vaccines have been around longer than that, but they they started seeing like the advances in medical care, and it's like the sky is the limit. We can make people live forever. And so I think that's where it really comes from, is there's I think more there's a generation of people in that age range who are less willing to talk about it because it became
Yeah.
impossible to think that people could die when they could be kept alive for so long in the hospital. I think younger people
Yeah.
are more interested in hearing about it, to be honest.
If you
Go
had
ahead,
to pick
Erica.
one
Sorry.
thing that you think is like the number one misconception of the public for hospice, what would you say? I think it's a toss up between
I
morphine
know. You can't
and
pick one.
I know it's so hard. And not
Starvation.
starvation. Yeah. Not feeding, giving liquids, fluids at the end of life. What do you think?
There's so many. There's so many. I think morphine is a big one, but just in general, that hospice causes. I would have to say, let's not drill down to morphine or starvation. Let's go a step higher, and generally speaking, people think that hospice makes people die faster. They think people
They
go
do.
onto hospice and it
They
causes them
do.
to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally negating the fact that they had to meet criteria, right, in order to get
To
on
be on
hospice, that
hospice.
they were already deemed
Yeah.
to be probably within 6 months or less of dying, but they just want to ignore that.
Well, yeah, let's just forget all that. Right?
Yeah.
We're-
But it has
just
a lot to do
people.
with late referrals and people dying soon. Like somebody was in my live on
Yeah.
TikTok today, and she said my mom was on hospice for one day and then she died.
That
My own dad
happens.
was on hospice for less than 12 hours. And so people are like, this is why I love Jimmy Carter, right? Because he elected hospice early and he's still alive after 7 months. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, right on. The longer he lives, the better it is for us. Because
Right.
everybody else, like the dude from
It's true.
that singer that died of liver cancer,
one?
somebody once told me that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He was on hospice for like a day or 2
Mhm.
days. And so people see, oh, this guy went on hospice. Oh, he died. It's like instant, right? Like they think hospice is a death sentence, and as soon as you go on, you die. So
We
that's
have
not a surprise
patients
that
on
people think
service
that.
sometimes for a couple of years, it just depends, right? If they
Yeah.
continue to meet criteria, there's no way to really gauge. But that's not uncommon to have someone on hospice for a day or less than a day. That happens.
Right. It happens, yeah. It's unfortunate, but yeah.
Well, I know we could do a whole podcast on just hospice for sure, but I promised the viewers that we were going to do a Halloween themed podcast, so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to talk about some spooky stories. I personally, I can't say that I have any that I've really encountered during my nursing career. So I have a lot from the
I don't
viewers.
know how
but,
you
I
go
say,
that long being a nurse and not have any of your own stories. Granted,
I mean,
you're
I
labor
have-
and delivery, but
I have
I'm
personal
peds and
stories.
I have a ton.
I do not have work related stories. I have horrible things that have happened in my nursing career, but I do not have any particular spooky. Thank goodness. I don't. I mean, knock on something, but I don't. So when it's my turn, I'm going to do stories from the viewers. But let's start. Well, I think our guest should be the one to start. I don't know if you have a story in particular you'd like to share, Penny, something that's happened with you, but maybe just something that is just out of the norm. It's not something, or you can explain it in the best way. I know a lot of things in hospice are actually considered the norm, but it would be possibly spooky to other people that don't really understand it. So I'll let you take it away with that.
Okay. So I am a day shift nurse. I hate working night shift. I found that the
Same.
people who work night shift are a little bit, you're kind of a different breed of person, somebody that can work at night, right? You're a little
Yeah.
on the edge. Okay. So I was working night shift in our hospice care center, and we had these pagers that either the people in the room could page us, and it would go, the room number would go to the pager, or after 8 o'clock at night, it would go to the doorbell. So if somebody rang the doorbell, it would go to our pager and it would say front door, side door, back door. So I was by myself at the nurse's station and my pager went off, front door. So I walked to the front door, opened the front door, nobody's there. I'm like, that's
Okay.
kind of weird. Okay. Go back to the nurse's station. A few minutes later, front door goes off again. It says front door. Okay. All right. I go to the front door, open the door. Nobody's there. So I go back to the nurse's station and it happens again. And this time I come
Oh
back to
my
the nurse's
gosh.
station and the night shift nurse who normally works night shift is there. And I said, I keep going and answering the front door because my pager's going off and there's nobody there. And she goes, oh, yeah, that happens all the time. The spirits are coming to get one of our patients. And then just like right after that, my pager goes off. It's a room number. I go down to the room and the person had just died.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Ugh.
It's almost like
Yeah.
the sensor or whatever could pick up that somebody was there. Like, that's crazy. Did it spook you out, or were you just like at that point like, okay, thanks for telling?
Well, when she first said it to me, I was like, yeah, night shift nurses, they are so crazy. Like they come up with the, like, what?
Like,
Like
how
we had
many
a
Red
night shift.
Bulls have you had?
I know, right? So, and then after that, I was like, whoa, that was wild.
There's
had
a
a night
lot of
shift
those
nurse one
kind
time.
of prophecy ones when someone is about to pass. You see that in like nursing homes a lot of the time. Some nursing homes have like a cat, a communal cat or a dog,
Oh,
right, for
yes,
the
the
nursing
hospice
home.
cat.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the cat will go in the patient's room that they've never gone in before. And that means within the shift or the 24 hours that person inevitably passes. That happens all the
truly
time. I saw
believe
that as a CNA.
I absolutely believe that. Animals, they are very good at sensing that kind of stuff.
They are. Oh my God, I just thought of another story. This is even
Let's hear it.
better. Okay.
Tell us.
So we have this patient. She's got ALS. And so down the hall, she's down on the left, and then we have another patient, a guy with liver failure, and he's on the right. And he's got this little yappy dog, and he's kind of unresponsive, like he's not really there anymore. The dog's always on the bed. Well, our patient down the hall had been with us for several months, and she made a decision to do VSED because she was like, I'm done. I don't want to eat or drink anymore. I'm going to be done. And she knew that we did this honor toast after a person died. We would have this honor cart with sparkling champagne, not champagne, but cider, and we'd all stand around and we do a little thing. So
Aw.
I wasn't working. This story was told to me, but it was evening shift, and she had said, I want to do the honor toast with you guys, and I'll tell you when it's time. So she calls the nurse in and she says, I want to do the honor toast tonight. And so they all came in around her bed, and they're all have their little sparkling cider, and they're all saying what she meant to them, And after the last person spoke, she died. She just closed her eyes and died, which Erica will tell you that's just not very common that people die like that.
No.
So down the hall in this other room, all of a sudden, this dog starts yapping and yapping. And the guy sits up in the bed and he looks at the door and he goes, who are you? Oh, okay. And then he lays back down and there was nobody at the door.
So he possibly saw her.
Yeah.
Leaving. Wow. That's
Yep.
freaking nuts.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
I will say
I still have chills about that one. That happened so many years ago, and I still get chills when I think about that. It's like
the only thing I can somewhat relate to with my own personal experience would be my mother died several years before my father did. I don't think I've told you this story, Erica. And so when my father was finally on hospice, he was dying of alcoholism. He was on his final days. I mean, he wasn't at this point, obviously wasn't drunk or anything. He had serious DTs and at this point was bedbound and had pressure ulcers, and we tried antibiotics. Long story short, I'm only prefacing that because I don't want to tell this story and people think, oh well, he was drunk, that's why. No, he was just in end of life because of liver failure and all sorts of different things and infections. But me and my sisters were there with him, and he would be coherent most of the time. Like he was doing okay, but you knew it was getting towards the end. And he looks out into the hallway and he's like, there she is again. And I'm like, who? And he's like, your mother. She keeps walking back and forth and back and forth. And he's like, and sometimes she comes and just sits right here on the bed. He's like, I don't know what she wants. She doesn't say much, but she keeps looking at. I have to talk like my dad when I do it with his accent. Maggie, she keeps walking. That's what he'd say, up and down the hall. And he's like, and she come and sit here on the edge of the bed. And we were all like, we don't see Mom, Dad. And he's like, what do you mean? She's right there. Like he would talk clear as day. Like he saw her. He said she was there. And
that's a common
I would
one.
say
Oh yeah, I got hundreds of stories like that one.
Yeah, and
for
when
somebody that doesn't work hospice and isn't used to that, like it was like,
yes,
yeah,
okay, Dad, like that's, and I think that's amazing. That's so cool. Like
when we talked to John Edward,
really happens,
he said, remember, he said, no one dies alone.
Yeah,
remember,
he did.
Yeah,
he said even if your family isn't
comes
there in the room, there is, they never are alone. Somebody is always with them, so don't feel bad. That was a pretty powerful thing because I think a lot of people feel guilty.
Which I think is comforting. That's comforting, right?
Oh yeah,
that's comforting.
Yeah. Yeah, but like families who aren't expecting it will be sometimes concerned, and they want medication. They think they're hallucinating.
Yes.
And even patients, because people can have deathbed visions weeks before they die when they're alert, they're not on meds, has nothing to do with their disease. I had one lady who, and as a hospice nurse, that is an actual sign that we assess for. Are you seeing dead people? Because it does help us to understand where they are in their dying process. And I had one lady, when I asked her that, have you seen anything out of the ordinary, like deceased loved ones or anything like that? And she was like, oh, no. And then I said, oh, okay, because that's normal. And she said, it is? And I go, yeah, it's normal. People see, visions at the end of their life all the time. And she said, oh, okay, well, my dad's standing in the kitchen over there. And of course, there was nobody there.
Oh, but so she was scared to say it.
I didn't tell you because I thought you would think I was crazy. Yeah,
she
said,
my gosh.
I thought you would think I was crazy. So, it's unnerving to them. But at some point, and sometimes they don't start as actual visions of people. They might be shadows and they're not sure what they're seeing. But generally, the overall feeling is of comfort. Like it brings them peace and comfort.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone that's afraid by it.
I like.
Ever.
I was gonna say I like when Penny does the videos of people reaching, like they're reaching.
Yeah.
My dad did that. Towards the very end, he would. You could see his hands, like what? And we're like, what in the heck is he doing?
Yeah, there's nothing there. What is he reaching for? Yeah.
Doesn't it make you think, though, that he was reaching for her? Because, see, I never gave that a whole lot of thought with the reaching. We see it all the time. I started thinking, like a lot of times our patients report that their loved ones they see are up above them or in the corner of the room. I've had lots of patients who could see them in the corner. And I started thinking, hey, you know what? That's what this is probably all about. They're reaching for those visions.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, I think that Erica, let's let you tell us one of your stories because I know you have a couple personal ones, right?
I do. I have some. So, my background inpatient pediatrics, when I was a pretty new nurse, the hospital had built a whole brand new tower. So we had spent a whole shift moving patients one by one from the old unit that was going to be, kind of transformed into something else into a whole new tower. And so the old unit was empty. There was not a single patient left. It had been hours since we had transferred everyone. And I was sent to go back to the old unit just to gather equipment that was still there. Now, I was the only one in the unit. And it's the only place when you get off the elevator. It's this one unit. I can see the elevator. I know for a fact I'm the only one there. I'm gathering pulse ox machines and different things, putting it on a cart, and I hear a call light go off. Okay. That happens sometimes, right? So I go and I look in the room. Of course, there's no one there. I cancel the call light, go on about my business. A couple minutes later, happens again. Same room. And I'm like, we don't want this right now. We do not want this right now. I went in the room. I disconnected it, pulled it out of the wall. Okay. There's no way that it could. It went off again after I got back out of the room, went off a third time. That's when I just took whatever I had already on the cart and left. I'm like, well, I'm not doing this. I'm not waiting to see what comes next, what this means. That's too much. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
interesting. That is, I don't think I would want to find out either, even though it probably wasn't anything bad. I mean, it probably wasn't, if it was a spirit or whatever.
Yeah,
but
it's not necessarily malicious, but it's
why
scary.
Take your chances?
Right.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, no, it could be a bad person.
It could be definitely something that's unnerving. All right, so I'm going to switch to one of the ones that I got from the viewers, the ones that they sent into me. So let me
A lot of viewers sent us a lot of them. So thank you everyone that sent them in.
I honestly have not screened these, so I'm just going to read the first one that I have here and we'll see what it is.
Okay.
So I started out in ICU as a new grad 2011 and could only get a PRN position and not the hours I wanted and kept getting called off. Totally crazy to think about now. So after about 7 to 8 months, I got a hospice job on the side, the start of my nursing burnout, she put in quotes. Now, by this time, I had worked several post-mortem deaths in the hospital, but it was always group effort to get it done. So after I finished training with hospice, I got sent to work my first hospice death by myself. Who lets a new grad do their first hospice death on their own?
Gotta do it sometime.
She says. The family had found the patient around 6 o'clock that morning and wasn't exactly sure when he had passed during the night. It was storming like crazy that day and was still jet black outside from storm and rain when I got there, with the exception of lightning. I had never seen this patient before, so I go in, greet the family, say my condolences. Then they take me to his bedroom upstairs, and I tell them that I will give him a bath and get him ready for the funeral home. He was curled up in a ball on his side with his eyes open when I find him. I get the water ready and straighten him out and close his eyes to start the bath. And she says, I shit you not. Those are the exact words. I shit you not. The exact second I touch his face with the wash rag, he opens his eyes, turns his head, and his arm flexed up towards his face, followed by lightning. I dropped the rag and screamed like a little girl and stood up against the wall for a good while. Obviously, first time seeing rigor mortis like that, and I could not get out of that house fast enough. The funeral home finally came, and they sent 2 men who were old enough to be zombies themselves, and they dropped this tiny little patient when they were going down the stairs. Oh my gosh, that's awful. I've worked so many deaths in ICU and hospice since then, but I will never forget that patient or the eerie day coming and going to that house. So is that rigor mortis? Is that what she experienced? I don't know anything about this. What the hell was that?
I don't know about that, but the eyes opening. I was going to say, how did she even get them to stay shut? Because I've never been successful at keeping, we just give up pretty much. Just they're open. They're open. They're going to be open. I don't even try to close them, but it doesn't surprise me.
Maybe the family thought he was dead and he was still doing an agonal breath. That's maybe what I'm thinking. Like,
maybe
she should have presumably checked prior to the. She would have had to pronounce.
Well, she said she just walked.
If they called her for a death visit, it sounds like he would have been dead for a while when she got there. So I follow some morticians who have said that, when people say that a body can sit up after it dies, it's absolutely bullshit. That it doesn't ever happen.
No, that doesn't happen. But I'll tell you what does happen in the morgue. Okay, my ex-husband was a coroner, right? So I spent a lot of time in the morgue. And this is not anything unnatural.
That's what's wrong with you, Erica. Now
I know, right?
Now I know.
I know, right? It's not unnatural or anything, but it just would freak me out. So, it's not like in the TV shows and the movies where they're all in drawers stacked up to the ceiling. That's, not usually how it is in a morgue. They're usually laid out on a bunch of different gurneys in a big room, right? Covered in a sheet. And because of the smell, as you can imagine, there's really strong, air filtration systems. And basically, it's always running constantly to circulate the air in and out. And so because there's such a strong fan and circulation, the sheets are constantly rustling. So you are constantly out of the corner of your eye going, I know that one just moved. I know it moved. And it's really disconcerting. I freak out.
All right, I'm going to stop before we get into another story. It's time for the nursing problem of the week, Erica, and you know that it's just time. I mean, that's how we do it here on Nurses Uncorked. We just out of the blue, bam, we stop our train of thought and we get into the nursing problem because Erica likes the way we do this. So we're going to keep doing it. What's our nursing problem of the week?
Jessica keeps wanting to change it. And I'm like, no, this is good.
I've told her that I think it stops the flow, but Erica's like, people like it. So we're going to do it.
Well, they keep sending us stuff. Okay.
They do. So tell us what somebody has sent you this week.
Yeah. So I recently reported on a state that is about to get their first nursing union, that they had never had any nursing unions. And so I've been inundated with messages from nurses from states that they feel can't have unions, because they're just not educated on it. And it's always well, when are the unions going to come to Florida, to Alabama, to wherever they are? When are they going to get here? Why haven't they come here yet? Here's the thing. Unions do not just magically appear. You don't just sit around and wait for them to just appear one day.
They're not
They don't.
Weird.
They can't come without someone going and asking them to come. There's a whole process involved. So employees have to put in the work. You have to go out. You have to look at all the unions in your area. You can kind of interview them, find a good fit. Basically, you need to start the process of recruiting a union. A lot of the initial work is employees doing it. It's not the union yet until it's official. So please, you guys, do not sit around and on a hope and a prayer that one day you're going to go into work and see that the union has magically appeared, because that's not how it works at all.
Well, because I can tell you in Florida, they make them disappear as fast as they come on the hospital grounds. They get those ferries right off of the people passing out flyers. They're escorted off immediately. So if there is a union ferry, they're quickly exited. So I definitely agree with that, because it's not like it's just here they are.
Yeah, I swear nurses really sit around thinking that.
I never have given it thought one way or the other. But now that you mention that, it's like, of course, the unions aren't going to go to the hospital and start trying to recruit the nurses to become unionized. So, I mean, I watch Norma Ray.
Yeah, there's rules. It doesn't work. Yeah, Norma Ray.
So, Eric, wait, so who is it? So, because Eric, I'm learning. The people that would come to our hospital in the parking lot trying to stir up, hey, you guys probably need a union. Who is that? Other nurses, or is it union representatives? Like who are these people that are coming and doing this?
It could be either. So initially you go out, like I said, you can interview a few different unions, or maybe you just find one initially, and they're going to give you these cards. Typically you hear me talk about sign the union cards, always sign the union cards, right? And so the union cannot officially come in until you have enough percentage of these signed cards, right? And then you can hold the election. So in the beginning, it really is up to the employees to kind of go around and get these cards signed, but the union can, they have to abide by a lot of different rules that's spelled out in the National Labor Relations Act, but they can be outside the hospital. So they can try to catch people coming and going if they're off property,
that's what I
that
found.
kind of thing.
It literally was like as you were pulling into the parking lot is where they would be, and they'd try to hand you information, and then they would just vanish. You were gone. They were poof, poof. Security would
up and vanish like a fart in the wind.
Yeah. So wait, did we answer the nursing problem? The problem was, what the hell is the problem?
Don't sit around and wait for the
okay.
union to come, galloping in on a magic unicorn and save the day. You as employees need to put in the work and get the ball rolling.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good to know, because if you wait around, it's probably not going to happen. So
Right.
I like that answer. It's very to the point. So that's good.
Cute.
All right, let's get back into some spooky shit now.
All right.
Now that we've talked unions, because we know Erica loves that. Let's get into another story, and I'm just going to take over because this is sounds like a good one. Well, let's do it, and then we'll go around the room with Penny and Erica again. All right.
Okay.
I was working yet another shift in the ER, peak of COVID years, and a patient came in with a dislocated wrist post ladder fall with absent radial pulse. I love how nurses do these stories. They're so descriptive. It's like they're charting.
Right.
Narrative.
He had to do a reduction of his wrist to at least reestablish blood flow, and the doc had hope that maybe this would prevent surgery. Anyways, we provided education of the procedure and that ketamine may cause hallucinations. We told him to think happy thoughts while the drug is short-lived. Okay, sorry. Well, tell him to do happy thoughts while the drug is short-lived. He said, okay, I'll think of God and maybe I can talk to him too. The doctor and I chuckled and rolled our eyes, needing to get this done. IV ketamine was pushed, wrist was reduced, and patient was woken up. Okay, Mr. Smith, can you hear us? Are you awake? He then slowly came to it. Yes, I'm awake. Doc said, let's take another x-ray to see the progress. We may need to repeat the process. Patient said, okay, I just want to let you know that our God is proud of you and that you are in the place you need to be. This is the doc saying, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I haven't read these. Patient. He also said you need to watch your mouth. Oh, the doc replied, what? Patient. He said, you need to learn to watch your mouth. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't know you enough to tell you that, but that is his message to you. Doc was shaken. He cusses a lot and speaks out in passion. He cusses freely at the nurse's station, but during the patient's care, Doc had not cussed during this interaction. We stepped out of the room for x-ray. Doc looked at me and said, that mother really talked to Jesus? I said, Doc, you're proving his point. We went back to the room. X-ray showed improvement, but Doc wanted to repeat the process to prevent surgery. Patient agreed, and he goes back under ketamine. Mind you, I'm 14 weeks pregnant. Nobody knows I'm having a girl, nor am I showing through my scrubs. Oh my God, this is getting weirder. Patient wakes up from the second reduction. I know. I start to apply his splint, and he looks at me and says, I talked to him again. He wanted me to tell you that your little girl is going to change the world. The hairs on the back of my neck. Oh my God, I have goosebumps right now down both legs. Jesus, That's not from the story. That's me saying that. I'm sure without my mask, you would have seen my mouth had dropped wide open. I said, oh, well, there's another nurse here who's having a girl. Are you sure it's me? He replied while he dazed to my badge. Yes, he said your name. I walked out shaken. The doc was shaken. Doc asked me if I told him about my pregnancy, and I said no. He then asked, are you actually having a girl? And I replied, yes, I found out yesterday. We stood in the break room trying to process. That is a good freaking story.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is good.
And it makes me wonder how old her daughter is now. If, how long ago has she done anything to change the world? That's crazy.
Yeah, did she change the world? Good question.
Wow.
Just even being able to say you're pregnant, you're having a girl would have been good enough to.
Wait a minute, did the man die? What about that part of the story? Did he die?
No, he had a fractured wrist.
But he was talking to God. I don't know.
No, I know he was under ketamine. I mean, I think.
What does ketamine take you to God? If so,
ketamine can make you hallucinate.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Okay, so I've had people who have said that they had visions when they were in the ICU, and I think when you are close to death, or when your mind is opened in some other way with chemical, whatever, pharmaceuticals, it's like it lowers the veil or something, you know?
Yeah.
I think
And
I get
sometimes we
that.
chop it up to ICU psychosis, right? But it makes you
Mhm,
wonder how
mhm.
much of it is perhaps
like
something
Well,
else.
you
reducing
know,
your
there's this.
inhibitions almost, like where you aren't judgmental, you aren't
Yes.
like a typical human, you put
Hmm.
yourself maybe in a place that you wouldn't typically put yourself, that you're more receptive. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That could
Well, there's
definitely
this
be.
whole theory about people deathbed visioning, and that being caused by DMT, which is a chemical that they have proven that rats who are dying excrete a small amount of this DMT from their brain. They haven't proven it with humans, but DMT is found naturally in plants, and like Native Americans and natives from other countries used to use certain psychedelic plants to elevate their consciousness and be able to communicate with the spirits of their dead.
Yeah.
So I mean, I used to be like, people telling me it's DMT all the time. I'm sick of hearing it. But then I did some research about it and I found this out. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, well, that doesn't have to be like DMT and deathbed visions do not have to be mutually exclusive. Like maybe that
True.
is why people are having deathbed visions, but it doesn't mean that they're not really there. It doesn't mean that those spirits aren't really there. It means that the DMT is lowering the veil, if you will,
Yeah.
heightening the awareness, being able to put people into this whatever place where they can see these spirits of their dead loved
Yeah.
ones.
They're just more open
So,
to it and more receptive.
yeah,
I
it's like
swear, I
being
think
on
that
dropping
that's why.
acid. Haven't you ever done acid or mushrooms?
Not
I mean,
yet, but do you have any? No, I'm just kidding.
I've been
Party at
enlightened
Penny's
a few
house.
times.
Yeah.
I lived in the
Hey,
80s,
Penny,
I mean,
Penny, in the 70s and 80s, I think I was still too young, but I bet you have some good stories. We could probably do another podcast on that.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about that. But I think that that's almost why psychic mediums are able to connect the way that they do, is because they're able to zone in and they know how to reduce their whatever you want to call it, open the veil, reduce your inhibitions,
And
get
kids
to a zone.
too.
Yeah.
Children.
Yes.
Like my
Yeah,
daughter had
very
an
open.
invisible friend when she was little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
who
she
knew? Who
told me
knows who that was?
Yeah. It was Lindsay. She was this big. She wore pink and she got hit by a car.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
telling you, kids.
Wow.
Oh, so that's another thing. My daughter. So my father did meet my youngest one, Denali, and she was probably about a year old or so when he passed. So shortly after he passed, when she was able to start talking, verbalizing more, maybe by like 18 months or so, up until she was 2 years, there'd be many times we'd be outside and she'd either be on like our little, we have a bench that swings and we also have a swing set. There was many times she'd be like, oh, look up there. That look like Papa. So my husband's grandfather looks a lot like my dad. And she would say, look, that guy look like Papa. And I'm like, what guy? That guy, Papa. Like, and this would happen like every few days, literally for like 3 or 4 months straight. But it was always more so when we were outside, and I don't know why. But just the craziest stuff, like just weird thing. You see that guy there? And I'm like, I don't see who do you see? And then it just went away one day. I don't know. I think kids definitely, they're just not, I don't want to say jaded. Maybe that's a bad word, but they're just not.
They just
Well,
don't know
it's
that
a good word.
Yeah,
but it's
they're
not going to be
They've never
acceptable
been
for them to
told
say
that
it.
that it's impossible for them to see those things. Mia used to tell
Right.
me, she would tell us we couldn't sit down because we would sit on Lindsay if we didn't. And now as an adult, so she's 27 now, and I've asked her recently about Lindsay, like what, and she's like, all I can remember is that she wore pink all the time, and she was really tiny, and I killed her off. And I said, what do you mean you killed her off? And she said, I just remember saying that she was hit by a car. And I was like, well, don't you think that maybe she was hit by a car and she was the spirit of the little girl that got
Yeah.
hit by a car? She's like, oh, I don't know. I never really thought about that.
But maybe she got to an
So,
age that she realized this isn't something I should be seeing. You know what I mean? And then
yeah.
she stopped seeing it. But
Stop
Well,
believing.
influenced by my brother, her uncle, who's an atheist. So thinking that that's impossible
Oh,
now as an
right.
adult, she's like, it's not possible. But then I started like, well, maybe. She's like,
All right, let's get back to it. Who has a story they
Okay.
want to share? Erica, do you have one?
I
or
have
does
one.
Penny have?
I
Go,
do.
Erica.
No,
All
Erica
right,
has one because I know she had another one. So we'll do Erica's.
All right, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Peds oncology, night shift. Admitted a little girl. First time she had been admitted, newly diagnosed, and put her in a room that a long-term patient had been in for, I don't know, close to a year, a little boy named Billy. And Billy had passed not too long, maybe 2-3 weeks before that. And it was a hard one for the unit. You know, it was a patient that we were all very attached to. And it was a hard one. We were still kind of reeling from it. And so we admitted the little girl to Billy's room, and she didn't know anything of Billy, had no idea, and ended up waking up in the middle of the night when I went in to check the pump or something. And she said, you know what? I had a dream, and Billy came to me in a dream and said, it's going to be okay.
Oh,
Wow.
And I just
that's
remember
pretty cool.
standing there absolutely frozen, not like I didn't want to scare her or look startled, but at the same time, I was
Right.
kind of riveted and not able to react momentarily. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
that
pretty
was one I'll
amazing.
never forget. Yeah.
Did she die, that little girl?
To my knowledge, no. When I left there, she was still kind of, you know,
'Cause you
on and
wonder,
off
like,
again
was she
patient. She would come
visioning?
in
Was
for
she-
treatments. Yeah, no, I think she made it as far as I know. Yeah.
All right,
It's just
Penny,
all
do you
wackadoo
have
internet.
another story that you want to share, or
I do have one that is pretty, like, if you want to talk creepy, spooky,
Oh, the
and also
creepier the better.
yes,
a lot of conjecture on my part. So at the hospice care center, we had a patient who was a sex offender. He came over from McNeil Island, which is a prison island for sex offenders.
Okay.
And he was actively dying, meaning he's unresponsive, like he's not going anywhere. And there was a guard at the bedside. So first I got to give this little background. So when people are dying, they have like this they get this glazed over look in their eyes. And a nun once explained to me that that means that the spirit has left and the body is still here doing the work of dying. So when people are dying, they get this glazed look, like this far away, not focused on. Lights are on, but nobody's home. Erica, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So this guy is dying, actively dying, and the guard is at the bedside. And I said to the guard, he must have done something really bad for you to still have to be here, because obviously not going anywhere. I didn't say that part, but I'm thinking like, dude, this guy's not going anywhere except for, you know, on a gurney
Right.
with his head covered up. And he goes like, oh, you don't even want to know what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I thought to myself, I don't want to know what he did, because I have to treat all my patients the same, with the
Right.
same compassion, you know, and care. I'm not going to treat him any differently, because that's my job to be a nurse for him. So I was. So as he got closer to the end of life, he never had that faraway look in his eyes. Like he looked like he was in there the whole time,
really?
Mm.
up until the moment that he died. And I was like, what if if you're a
I know
decent
where you're
person,
going. Yep.
your spirit gets to leave and your body does the physical work of dying. But if you're a bad person like him, you get to stay in there the whole time, up until the death, and who knows, maybe after. maybe you don't even get released until your body's decomposed or burned up or whatever. But
Yeah.
it was weird. I mean, it's hard to do a story like that justice
Mm.
because you had to really be there to understand like what it looked like, to see that he was present all the way up until when he died. It was just
You know
really
what? That's
weird.
a
Yeah,
question
that
I
one
would have
makes you
loved to have
wonder.
asked John Edward. Is like, does he ever speak to people that were bad, horrible people here? Does those
Oh.
kind
That's a
of
good
people ever come through?
question.
And I didn't
Yeah.
think to ask him
Yeah.
that, but that's an amazing
That's because you were
question.
too busy
know what?
crying the whole time.
I know I
I
did,
feel
Penny. I
like
cried the whole thing.
I feel like he's addressed that, like in his show, or maybe on a live or something like that. I feel like he has addressed that. It seems
Probably.
like.
Maybe he has, but
Yeah.
I swear, like
I know he doesn't like to tell people bad things, like.
Yeah.
I
He's
mean,
not a
what he has said is
fatalist.
that when the people that come through are okay and they're happy. Like when he
Right.
talks to
Yes.
them, they're fine, they're happy. There's nobody that comes through. It's like, I hate it here. Like,
Right.
like they're all good. So I wonder if maybe evil people don't come through. I don't know. That's a great question.
Or if he doesn't
I
want
don't
to
know.
share it. That is a good question.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I just have this vision of them being locked in their body for a long time, doing penance for their crime.
Yeah,
So
like
I
a
just-
purgatory.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
heard you today, Penny, on your live talking about the movie that Erica and I just talked about, which is
Oh, the
What
Robin
Dreams May
Williams.
Come.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, is that what it's
I
called?
love that movie.
That
Me
movie.
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
Me
Yeah.
too. And I heard
I've
I
only
heard
seen it one time and I will never forget it. It was so powerful, but also scared the bejesus out of me because honestly, but I was
will
never
scare you.
raised religious, really particularly, but
I was.
I never gave any thought to purgatory prior to that movie. And now I can't not think of it.
Catholics
Like, that's such
will
a
drill
that
that in your
terrifying.
That is a hard part. Yeah, I don't really like that part. I have two cousins that killed themselves, and that's like
Yeah.
really sad to me to think that
I'm
they could be
sorry.
punished for that in purgatory. But I do like the whole like idea that you get to choose if you want to come back, or you get to be wherever is cool for you to be,
Yeah.
or
I almost,
and I
you
wasn't
know what?
raised with religion
I
either.
almost feel
So
like suicide is, in my mind, is different from inflicting harm on somebody else. Like, I have heard John Edward has brought many people through that did kill themselves. I've heard him, relay messages from people that took their own
Yeah.
life, almost like, I feel sorry, I feel guilty, I've done, something. So I almost feel like there's a difference. Like if you've done something to yourself, well, that's sad and that's awful. I don't know. In my mind, I kind of want to think that those two things are separate, like versus doing something
Yeah.
horrible to another person. I don't know. That's
well,
a
it's
tough
mental
one.
illness. They can't help it. They can't
Right.
help that any more than somebody with cancer can help dying from cancer. It's a mental illness, and
That's what I think.
they always say somebody who dies by suicide doesn't really want to die. They just want to escape the pain of living.
They don't
and
want to hurt anymore.
Yes. Erica, you ready for your enema? Let's give Erica an enema of the week. Erica, what's
Not
the
me.
enema of the week? Tell them. So,
Okay.
well, and everyone knows what our weekly enema is, but it's somebody that's deserving of a big pile of. They're deserving
Essentially.
of unclogging their internal.
okay, so the enema award is not something you want.
No,
It's something
Correct.
no, it's
Correct.
you give it to somebody that's deserving of a big pile of feces.
Yeah.
So Erica, it has somebody in mind. Go ahead,
Yes.
Erica.
So a lot of you may have seen recently a really tragic letter that I shared by a nurse named Tristan Kate Smith, who wrote a letter entitled "Letter to My Abuser," and I think we're going to talk about that on a later episode some more, but it has recently come to my attention that in the wake of that, the hospital, and I'm not going to name the hospital, but the hospital for the family planted a tree in her honor. To me, that is the equivalent of a cold slice of pizza That is a pen for a healthcare hero. That is, the bare minimum. And someone has sent me pictures, and while it's a nice thought, I think they maybe perhaps purchased like the Wish version of a tree.
It looks
rather
like a Charlie
small
Brown Christmas tree.
Yes, and it's apparently in the back, like by a loading dock where no one goes and no one will see it. Yeah.
Wow. That's
And so the Enema Award of the week goes to that hospital in question. Do better.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm assuming that they've done no other amazing things. That's probably
no, not to my knowledge. No.
Okay.
And if you read the letter, that there's definitely issues that occurred there according to the letter that Tristan left behind. And you would think that the bare minimum they would do is try to put things in place to prevent this from happening to another nurse in the future.
Yeah. Of course not.
But as far as I know, that has not been the case. There's a tree.
Well, they are well deserving of a big soap sud enema. I can tell you that. A big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a hard story.
Stuff.
That's a really hard story.
Stuff.
That's a
I don't know how we ended up getting into a lot of this, but
story that has bothered, I think, most of us all week. Has it been like a week since we've known? I think about a week.
Yeah.
It's been a very, very, very tough one. It's what a well thought out descriptive thing that she encompassed, what all of us are feeling.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Sums it all up. But
yeah. Well, I have a question for you ladies.
What?
To end on a little bit of a spookier note.
All right, let's do it.
Along the lines of a spooky nurse story, it does not involve death per se, but have either of you had to encounter an exorcism in the course of your career working as a nurse?
No, I'm Catholic. Don't want anything to do with that. Nope.
No, but I worked with those damn night shift nurses. I tell you, when I worked at the Hospice Care Center,
the demons out of the night shift nurses.
Well, we had a patient who had terminal agitation, and one of the night shift nurses in report said, we wondered if she'd been baptized, so we went in the chapel and we got some holy water and we sprinkled it on her. And I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, can you be a nurse instead of pushing your religion on somebody else and thinking that holy water is going to cure terminal agitation?
All I can tell you is that if you grew up Catholic, that is believed in, that is drilled into your brain as a child. Demons, devils, being taken over by the devil, possessed by the devil. Like, it's no wonder I'm not more cuckoo than I am. But I mean, I remember a Catholic school I went to all my life. That is just that movie, the one with the pea soup and the whole thing, scared the literal out of me. Like, seriously, scared the literal out of me, because they teach you that is the end all be all. So if anybody had said they needed an exorcism, I can tell you my ass would have run right out the door. I don't want nothing to do with that.
I had a patient that had an exorcism, believe it or not. That's why I asked. So look at Jessica's eyes are big.
I know, I'm ready, like, run, Erica, run.
So it was a female adolescent that came in presenting straight psych, but wasn't responding to anything and was hospitalized for quite a period of time. And the family was, I believe, Hispanic, and there was a little bit of a language barrier and a cultural kind of a barrier differences. And eventually, after she had been there for weeks, they requested to be able to bring in their priest and do an exorcism. And I think it went through, I don't know that it went to the ethics committee necessarily, but like it it went up there a few, a little bit. It got escalated. And finally they did. I don't think they even waited for us to say yes. I just walked in one day and they were full blown.
Look at my eyeballs again.
I know. And they had 20 people at bedside. We had a max of 2 visitation, right? Didn't matter. They had 20 people in there. There's a priest doing all kinds of chants in a different language. And there's what I assume to be some nuns. They kind of appeared that way. And they're all just kind of like,
what do you mean?
I mean, they didn't, because they weren't wearing like a typical habit.
Okay.
They don't dress like that anymore.
Yeah.
No.
So they were like circled around. It was a whole thing. And I had to go in there to like reprogram the pump or something. I don't know. And I was just like,
no.
And I was normally the visitation Nazi. Like, you have to go. But I was
wait.
I'm not having any part of this.
Wait. Before you tell the end, what was this girl's symptoms that they felt she needed an exorcism? What was the exhibiting? What was this person doing?
She had apparently been like a very kind of innocent, sweet girl. No, and suddenly was like cursing. They had never heard her react this way. Was just like spewing hate towards anyone.
Pea soup?
No, not
wasn't pea soup. Oh.
Just very uncharacteristic, and you couldn't calm her down. It was, that kind of thing. So fast forward, she ended up eventually being diagnosed with anti-NMDA, which is a type of encephalitis that does present as straight psych. It's an actually fascinating disease. But
how many times has this probably happened in the past, and they think that they're possessed by a demon?
Oh yeah,
seriously.
Oh yeah,
like
Once we started learning about that,
did the exorcism do anything?
Did it work?
Did it cause any change?
Not that I recall. However, it wasn't too long after that they finally figured out the diagnosis. And so then they treated appropriately,
Okay.
But yeah, before we knew about that, it makes you wonder how many people were institutionalized back in the day that genuinely had a medical issue.
Or burned at the stake.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so scary.
Yeah, the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
They burned people at the stake if they had epilepsy.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so freaking creepy.
Imagine walking in a room, in a peds unit, no less, and they're doing an exorcism.
Wow.
No, that right there is my worst. That ranks with Children of the Corn. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
Don't
Malachi.
like it. Ain't do. Yeah. Oh, stop it! Don't even. Nurse Jessica don't like this kind of stuff. Don't get me into that religious kind of stuff. All right, Nurse Penny, speaking of Malachi, where can people find you on social media?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Hospice Nurse Penny. All one word, Hospice Nurse Penny. And
in
all
the honesty,
socials.
Her stuff is actually very educational but entertaining at the same time.
Yes.
Thank you.
She does a great job of delivering it as people's attention spans in this day and age are very short.
Yes.
Fused, short span. She does a great job of delivering a message. If you're interested in learning about death, dying, crossing over, hospice, all things that need to be dived into
normalized
a lot further because it is a reality of life. Yeah. You definitely should follow Hospice Nurse Penny. She's everywhere. Look forward to our next podcast. We have more cool guests coming up this month. You don't want to miss it in this spooky month of October.
Ooh.